Sam Sing. Hey guys, we're gonna finish up this Aepyornis Island today. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. We're coming to you from the Hammock Hangar. Now, when we left this thing off, the guy with the scar was telling about how he was drifting in a canoe for 10 days and he had to eat up his Aepyornis eggs that were, 1,400 years old or something and still alive. He had to eat one of them up. He was describing how he had to eat the precious thing up, and it was beastly tasting in some of it. Here we go. However, I had to eat that precious thing up, every bit of it, before I sighted the reef, and some of the mouthfuls were beastly unpleasant. I left a third one alone. I held it up to the light, but the shell was too thick for me to get any notion of what might be happening inside. And though I fancied I heard blood pulsing, it might have been the rustle in my own ears, like when you listen to in a seashell. Then came the atoll, came out of the sunrise as if it were suddenly close up to me. I drifted straight towards it until I was about a half a mile from shore, not more, and then the current took a turn, and I had to paddle as hard as I could with my hands and bits of the Aepyornis shell to make the place. However, I got there. It was just a common atoll about 4 miles around, with a few trees growing and a spring in one place, and the lagoon full of parrotfish. Oh boy, he's a pretty lucky guy. I took the egg ashore and put it in a good place, well above the tide lines and in the sun, to give it all the chance I could, and pulled the canoe up safe and loafed about prospecting. It's rum how dull an atoll is. As soon as I had found a spring, all the interest seemed to vanish. When I was a kid, I thought nothing could be more finer and more adventurous than the Robinson Crusoe business. But that place was as monotonous as a book of sermons. I went around finding eatable things and generally thinking. But I tell you, I was bored to death before the first day was out. It shows my luck that very day I landed, the weather changed. A thunderstorm went by to the north and flicked its wing over the island. And in the night there came a drencher and a howling wind slap over us. It wouldn't have taken much, to upset that canoe. I was sleeping under the canoe, and the egg was luckily among the sand higher up the beach. And the first thing I remember was a sound like 100 pebbles hitting the boat at once, and a rush of water over my body. I'd been dreaming of Antananarivo, and I sat up and hallooed to Intoshi to ask her what the devil was up, and clawed out at the chair where the matches used to be. Then I remembered where I was. There were phosphorescent waves rolling up as if they were meant to eat me, and all the rest of the night as black as pitch. The air was simply yelling. The clouds seemed down on your head almost, and the rain fell as if heaven was sinking and they were bailing out the waters above the firmament. One great roller came writhing at me like a fiery serpent, and I bolted. Though I thought of the canoe and ran down to it as the water went hissing back again, but the thing had gone. I wondered about the egg then. I felt my way to it. It was all right and well out of reach of the maddest waves. So I sat down beside it and cuddled it for company. Lord, what a night that was. The storm was over before the morning. There wasn't a rag of cloud left in the sky when the dawn came, and all along the beach there were bits of plank scattered, which was the disarticulated skeleton, so to speak, of my canoe. However, that gave me something to do, for taking advantage of two of the trees being together, I rigged up a kind of storm shelter with these vestiges, and that day the egg hatched. No way. Hatched, sir? When my head was pillowed on it and I was asleep. I heard a whack, and I felt a jar and sat up, and there was the end of the egg pecked out, and a rum little brown head looking out at me. Lord, I said, "You're welcome." And with a little difficulty he came out. He was a nice, friendly little chap at first, about the size of a small hen, very much like most other young birds, only bigger. His plumage was a dirty brown to begin with a sort of gray scab that fell off it very soon, and scarcely feathers, a kind of downy hair. I could hardly express how pleased I was to see him. I tell you, Robinson Crusoe don't make near enough of his loneliness. But here was interesting company. He looked at me. He winked his eye from the front backwards like a hen. He gave a chirp and began to peck about at once, as though being hatched 300 years too late was just nothing. "Glad to see you, Man Friday," says I, for I naturally settled he was to be called Man Friday if ever he was hatched, as soon as ever I found the egg in the canoe had developed. I was a bit anxious about his feed, so I gave him a lump of raw parrotfish at once. He took it, opened his beak for me, and I was glad of that, for under the circumstances, if he had been at all fanciful, I should have had to eat him after all. You'd be surprised what an interesting bird that Aepyornis chick was. He followed me about from the very beginning. He used to stand by me and watch while I fished in the lagoon, and go shares in anything I caught. And he was sensible, too. There were nasty green warty things like pickled gherkins used to lie about on the beach, and he tried one of these and it upset him. He never even looked at any of them again. And he grew. You could almost see him grow. And as I was never much of a society man, his quiet, friendly ways suited me to a T. For nearly 2 years we were happy as we could be on that island. I had no business worries, for I knew my salary was mounting up at Dawson's. We would see a sail now and then, but nothing ever came near us. I amused myself, too, by decorating the island with designs worked in sea urchins and fancy shells of various kinds. I put Aepyornis Island all around the place, very nearly in big letters, like what you see done with colored stones at railway stations in the old country, and mathematical calculations and drawings of various sorts. And I used to lie watching the blessed bird stalking around and growing, and I think how I could make a living out of him by showing him about if I ever got taken off. How after his first molt he began to get handsome, with a crest and a blue wattle. Okay. And a lot of green feathers at the behind of him. And then I used to puzzle whether Dawson's had any right to claim here or not. Stormy weather, and in the rainy season we lay snug under the shelter I made out of the old canoe, and I used to tell him lies about my friends at home. And after a storm, we would go around the island together to see if there was any drift. It was kind of ideal, you might say. If only I had some tobacco, it would have been simply just like heaven. It was about the end of the second year our little paradise went wrong. Friday was then about 14 feet high to the bill of him, with a big, broad head like the end of a pickaxe, and two huge brown eyes with yellow rims, set together like a man's, not out on the side of each like other hens. His plumage was fine, none of the half-mourning style of your ostrich, more like a cassowary as far as color and texture go. And then was he begin to cock his comb at me and give himself airs and show signs of nasty temper. So his wild ancient bird that's gigantic is going to become unruly. Go figure, huh? At last came a time when my fishing had been rather unlucky, and he began to hang about me in a queer, meditative way, and I thought he might have been eating sea cucumbers or something. Nope. But it was really just discontent on his part. I was hungry too, and when at last I landed a fish, I wanted it for myself. Tempers were short that morning on both sides. He pecked at it and grabbed it. I gave him a whack on the head to make him leave and go, and at that he went for me. Lord. Okay, holy cow. I guess we're going to have to just leave it there. If we had just another 5 minutes or so, we could finish this thing, but all right. Thanks for hanging out. Some see.